because there's some things I want to talk about to start this game that have they're just dominating the Spurs verse right now. It's stuff that we've talked about before, some stuff that I'm about to eat some crow on it, Ethan, because
Oh,
we keep it real here at
we do.
SSPN always. And of course, that is with Tre Jones in the starting lineup and the things that we have seen over the past 3 games. Um, I could dish it to you, but I have a little thing that I wrote down kind of about it. So I'm just going to ramble this off and then
Okay.
I'll dish it to you. And then after that, we'll get into the game flow because I thought I might make a clip out of this too, just because this is kind of one, it's big in Spurs news with the way we've been playing.
Hmm.
But then two, it's kind of probably the biggest topic of conversation, like outside of the game moving forward for the team. So what I wrote down here's what I got on Tre Jones in the starting lineup. Tre's facilitation and scoring is opened up so much more when he's surrounded by talent. He's no longer zeroed in, and he actually has people to pass to that are going to convert on their looks. He also pushes the pace in transition and knows how to feed guys in run lanes and position himself correctly. The other thing about the run lanes is the guys that he's playing with are more competent in that area as well. So it just makes the connectedness and the flow so much better. I was wrong about him being in the starting lineup, not significantly changing anything. But, and this isn't, I'm still very wrong. I would like to say that. But with how he looked on the bench this year, 8, 2, and 4, I don't think I was too crazy, you know, not expecting much.
Mm.
Or not expecting, a giant change. But the thing that I underestimated that I talked about on the last post game we did is what I opened up, that point on. And that was that when he's not being zeroed in on, and he's not having to create his own offense, and there's attention drawn by Wembenyama, Devin, and even Sohan to an extent, and then you got to close out on Champagny, in this
Hmm.
starting lineup as well. I want to talk about him too. We'll get into some other things, but obviously Tre is the main thing. And I saw another tweet just before we got on here. Every game that Tre Jones has started this year, the Spurs have won the third quarter.
Sorry, my box
Everything all
score just
good?
started yelling. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. I thought it was like a event in your apartment.
No, no,
Anyways,
no.
um, going back to Tre, um, I think I kind of finished my thoughts there.
Yeah, I think you did too, and I think you hit it right on the nail on the head. And to give us kind of an out, if you will, I I believe the phraseology that we technically used was while we agreed we would be better with Tre Jones in the starting lineup, just objectively, because of his ability to push the pace, and he's the only real natural point guard and facilitator on the floor. We agreed on that point. I think we both underestimated the impact actually resulting in wins, which it has. And we've been in games, more competitive games, with him in the starting lineup. So we were wrong on that extent. So we have to swallow our words there, both of us, Jude and me. It wasn't just Jude; it was me as well. But I think the two most important things that you mentioned were his ability to push the pace, and then his ability to know when and when not to change up the monotony of the offense. Like with Jeremy, with everybody else, like there's a certain flow that we play within the offense. Like we always get the sets at the same tempo. It's pretty readable, if you will. And there were a few
Hmm.
times, especially tonight, where Tre is able to like almost lull you to sleep and then flip it on a dime and just shake everything up and get an easy layup because he
Start
was
and
been.
stop speed too kind of ties
Mhm.
into that.
Exactly. He can blow by guys at a higher clip. And all that comes back to his ability to play make for guys in the transition, especially. Um, Definitely been pleased with his ability in the starting lineup.
Yeah, and that's not the only change in the lineup that we had that
Hmm.
we were also kind of wrong on too. Because another thing that we were saying at the beginning of the season, and while we're kind of half wrong, half right, and you'll get where I'm coming from as I finish this thought.
Yeah, I know
Um,
where you're going.
but um, we said that whoever got moved to the bench this year, it was going to be better for them.
Hmm.
I think the beginning of the season proved that that was not the case for Tre Jones. But
Yes.
who it was the case for is Keldon Johnson, who's been coming off the bench. And there's some other things that I had written down on that as well that I'll read off here and then dish it to you. Um, obviously I was a big advocate for KJ starting at the beginning of the year, and I think that had a lot to do with all of the hate that he was
Mhm.
getting online. Like long term, if we drafted somebody else, I don't think I would have been opposed to him being a six man. But just kind of with the timing of it and everything, I felt like I had to. I felt like there weren't a lot of people out there like standing up for him, so I kind of felt like I needed to do that. Kind of,
Mhm.
I think that impacted seeing that a little bit. But what we've seen from him off the bench, man, um, he can create his own offense better than anybody on the team other than Devin and Wemby, which just helps the bench so much because when Keldon creates his own offense, it's not necessarily like the most pretty thing. Like if you wanted, I was thinking of a comparison the other day. Like when you think about Devin creating his own offense, not to say that he can't be physical, but he is a finesse off the dribble, Penny Hardaway, fancy type of stuff. Keldon's a hammer when it
Mhm.
comes to creating his own offense. But the thing that does for the bench is when he just decides to barrel to the rim, you've got Shetty on the perimeter. There were even some times where they play Champagny off the bench too. You've got Doug as well. So and the most important thing about that, Ethan, is that was the role that he played basically all last season. That's what
Mhm.
we're asking him to do on the bench right now. So it's something he's more comfortable in. We still see overlaps in the lineups. I still saw Devin, Trey, and Keldon and Wemby all out there on the floor at the same time tonight.
Mhm.
Um, but the point is him playing off the bench. I mean, that was the other big concern that I had of moving Trey to the starting lineup. Obviously, in that scenario, when I was saying, well, that's going to leave the bench for crap, I was assuming that Keldon would still be a starter. But in this scenario, with these rotations, we've seen Keldon's playmaking also improve this season. And then on top of that, I mentioned Shetty. He's another person who can play make. And we'll pull up the box score here in a little bit. My boy Barlow, it might have like 5+ assists tonight also, very similar to Zach, a couple backdoor passes. We saw that in the Cavs game as well. Um, but the other thing is when they zero in on Keldon because of his physicality, he's
Mhm.
able to kind of offset that. Where when Trey was on the bench, that wasn't the case. And then the last thing I'll say is, and obviously that had to do with him getting zeroed in on and not having, other guys to pass to or just being as competent as the starters are, as I mentioned earlier. But going back, but also Julian Champagny. And I know he doesn't do anything crazy in a lot of these games,
Mhm.
um, I mean, if you just look at his numbers, you probably don't see much in a lot of these, but his defense, that is something that I have noticed. Um, I think, I don't know if it was you or one of my friends made a comparison to him as kind of a Danny Green
Yeah.
type player. And I think that is a very accurate comparison for Champagny. But I think what Champagny does for the starting lineup is he helps with spacing, just straight up. I mean, like in comparison to Keldon, the spacing is better, and that ties into the pace and the run lanes. And then it's like, okay, and it also the other thing that taking Keldon to the bench does is it opens up Jeremy's offense with the starters as well.
Yeah, I think the Danny Green Manu Ginobili comparison between Champagny and Keldon's situation is very accurate. Obviously, they're different players, but they're similar in the sense that Keldon's play style, when he comes in off the bench, it doesn't matter if he's starting or coming in off the bench. He always starts aggressive and bull and China shop style of play. So it helps if our starting lineup gets off to a lull or they're not playing up to speed. He comes in and is immediately a spark plug, no matter what, just because of how he approaches the game. So I think that is something I didn't really take into account when we were initially discussing him coming in off the bench. I think what you brought up about Trey when he's basically focused in on coming in off the bench, that's a great point because Keldon had 8 free throws tonight, which led the
Right.
team because he's able to draw attention, get double teamed, and get fouled and finish with contact. Whereas Trey, if you trap him in the backcourt, it's pretty much wraps. He's either turning the ball over or he has to give it up, and he's not an off ball shooter. So it's definitely been a positive. I think that we were semi right in saying that everyone was going to get a chance to come off the bench this season. And so far, that's pretty much been the case. Trey has come off the bench, Jeremy, Devin, even though Devin's was more so because of injury,
Right.
but he also had a couple games off the bench, and now Keldon Johnson. I think it's safe to say that Keldon, thus far through this limited play time, has played the best coming in off the bench. And then also starting Champagny. I mean, you pretty much covered it, but another thing that starting him does is it eliminates one more option that Tre now, as the point guard, doesn't have to think about. Because before, if it was Tre Jones and Keldon starting, that's four mouths he has to think
Right.
about. Like, who gets the ball now? Who's hot? That's a lot to have to think about. Champagny is like, no, he's not getting the ball. He's an off-ball shooter. He's there for spacing. He's the Danny Green. He doesn't need it to get his game going. And then defensively, at 6'9", is able to be very versatile next to Jeremy and next to Victor and next to Devin as well.